Okay, well, it's 5 o'clock,
And
so we can take a roll call. And
Okay,
remember when we vote, you have to say hello, your name, yes, no, whatever. Because it's hard to see. All right, go ahead, Betsy, roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Petrie,
yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Lindhorst,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
Yes. Okay, so we're all here. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, John. And who made the second?
I did.
Beth?
Eric or whoever.
Sorry, I saw her hand go up.
That's all right. You're good.
Who made the motion?
John, and then second by Beth.
Okay,
Any discussion or questions about the agenda? Okay, if there's no discussion, we'll then vote to approve the agenda as amended. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Petrie,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Lindhorst,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
Yes. Okay, very good. We're going to start with old business. We need to have a motion to approve the contract with Bacon Commercial Design LLC as presented.
So move.
Thank you, Renee.
Second.
Second.
I heard Rob first, I believe. Okay, any discussion on the contract?
I've got a question. Just curious about the preparations that went into the scope of work to try and mitigate change order complications that might add costs to the project.
All right, yeah, I can address that. Couple different things that we've done because of different projects in the past. We have tons of change orders, as we want to be as diligent on the front end to have a very firm scope of work. So Mr. Bess, myself, all the administration up here, as well as all the secretaries of central office. We actually met this week with Mr. Bacon and Mr. Van Aert at the site to just discuss the scope and look at very specific needs. And actually, he was here today measuring spaces because we want to be very laser-like in our preparation to do that. And then Ray is working with him as we get into it on some of the geothermal pieces. Will be just laying some of that out. That would be more on for the driveways and sidewalks. I also emailed and had discussed with Mr. Bacon just on our concerns as a district. Because usually that's been an issue in the past, and we want to try to get as much bang for our dollars, is rather than these things that are forgotten and then it's like, you know, the initial bid gets milked up another significant amount. And so he had sent me an email back, and I'm gonna try to summarize. Is basically written for avoiding change orders is a function of a couple of items. First, the completeness, accuracy, and detail of the plans and specs will influence how many gray areas the contractor may raise. It is our goal to address as many issues as possible in the construction documents to minimize these. Our experience in this area has been very good, with change orders for work not added by the owners in the 1% to 3% range on average. Secondly, because this is a remodeling project, it's more than likely that unknown conditions may arise simply because of the original construction may not have followed the specific plans of the original architecture. So one of the ways to minimize this is for Ray and his team to do some preliminary demolition work. If there's a wall that's going to be removed, for us to cut out the drywall so it's exposing the electric. So the electrician's like, I know I'm gonna have to move that box, and figures that into the bid on doing things like that. So just, and And also putting in there, no extra work should ever be done without your prior authorization. He was referring to me. So the additional costs and cost basis for any extra work will be known prior to it being performed. If the GC is not communicating directly with the owner, it's less likely that these small changes will get approved. All of a sudden it's like, hey, we did this, and now we want to send you a bill. So being very diligent all the way throughout. And they said that all communication, he goes, finally, it is important that once construction begins, all communications from the GC go through or at least include us as your representative. So the architect to be the representative and the expert on site for that. So that's what we've done in preparation, just to try to be as laser-like and not be broad, you know, because if we're broad, the bid comes in cheap potentially, and then they start nickel and diming you. So that's kind of the prep that we put in to do that.
Just need to make sure we remember the toilets.
Yes. One of the other items that, and when we negotiated this contract as well, is this is a smaller project, right? It's a remodel. So instead of typically like an architect is like 10 to 12% of the total cost, ultimately. And so he's like, because we're only gonna be working in a specific area, is he's charging a per square foot charge of $5.40. So if there any, no matter what we do, it's not going to be based off the cost of materials and construction, because that was a concern of mine. Is, you know, the architect fees are getting pushed up simply because building materials are more expensive due to COVID, yet his work isn't any more expensive, if that makes any sense. The work is the work. So on this project, it's just billing a square foot charge. Does that answer kind of what?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no more concerns or questions, we'll take a vote to approve the contract with Bacon Commercial Design as presented. Roll call, please, Betsy.
Okay, Mrs. Petrie,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Lindhorst,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welker.
Yes. So motion carries. Okay, that concludes our open session. So we're going to recess. We'll take a vote to recess. And then after we recess, we'll have to connect in the other email that you received for executive session. Okay? So we can do this, I guess, by raising our hands. All in favor of recessing for open session, raise your hand. All right. Motion carries then, and we'll see you in a minute.
Now, do we leave this meeting and then join the next one?
Yes.